Welcome to Tales of Resilience, the podcast that shares the real stories of the people behind animal rescue, the heartbreaks, the triumphs, and the moments that keep us going. I'm your host, Jolene, a mental health therapist and lifelong animal lover. This podcast is brought to you by Zodipods, a heart-led company celebrating the bond between people and their pets, and Animal Rescue Hub, our free nonprofit directory supporting rescue groups across the country. This episode may include references of animal suffering and death, as well as themes of mental health, including suicide. Welcome to Tales of Resilience. I'm your host, Jolene, and today we're talking with Wendy Smith. Wendy is a military veteran, a trauma nurse with nearly 30 years of bedside experience, and co-founder of Odd Man Inn Animal Refuge, which just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. Odd Man Inn started in 2015 in Washington State, but the entire sanctuary moved in 2021 to rural Fentress County, Tennessee, to take over a herd of 159 pigs in need of caregivers and extensive restoration of their 93-acre home. Wendy works as the executive director of the sanctuary, and she is a full-time animal caregiver alongside a small team of very dedicated volunteers and fellow caregivers who are committed to their mission of providing lifelong sanctuary care for vulnerable animals and educating to inspire more compassionate living. Odd Man Inn is currently home to 165 pigs, many of which are very large breeds, but also care for smaller numbers of cows, goats, sheep, and chickens. The organization is a rare beacon of safety in the rural South for species of animals who are often very desperate for resources of any kind. So welcome, Wendy, to the podcast and joining in the conversation of resilience in the animal welfare space.
Thank you so much for having me. I did quite a bit of homework listening to some of the episodes that you have done recently, some of which are people that I actually know personally. So it was great to listen to their answers about resilience and their stories about their organizations. And I'm really excited to have a chance to have this discussion with you because I think it's a pretty important one in the world of animal rescue.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know you have ties to the Pacific Northwest, which is where I am and where a good chunk of the people I've been able to talk to are right now. So that's very cool. And yes, this field is just, I think, underrepresented in certain conversations. And so, yeah, happy to have you here. So I usually start with just giving space for you to talk about the work that you're doing with Odd Man Inn, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Okay. Well, I mean, your intro was really great. I think that is a pretty good description of sort of where we started and where we are now. It is the rural South is a pretty difficult space for farmed animals to find safe resources. And when we moved here in 2021, we fully anticipated that this was going to be a difficult task to take over. And when Odd Man Inn started back in 2015, it was never with the plan for this to be a very large pig sanctuary in rural Tennessee. Odd Man Inn started because of a dog named Roswell. And I know that quite a few of the people you've interviewed, they have ties to the dog and cat community. And so I like to always highlight Roswell because he was resident number one. He was the unofficial first resident of Odd Man Inn, and he was a beautiful black lab with a bite history that was in a no-kill shelter in Portland, Oregon. And I was looking for a dog to adopt, and lo and behold, I came across Roswell. I did not take the bite history portion of things as seriously as I should have. He had a very significant fear-based aggression type of biting with a very short trigger, and it was very dangerous. And the professional recommendations after seeing dog psychologists and veterinarians out the wazoo and speaking with behaviorists and failing out of doggy school because he just could not tolerate being around people and being around dogs. Had a veterinarian say to me, not all dogs can be saved. And there sometimes comes a point where you have to start thinking about euthanasia for behavioral reasons. It's heartbreaking. I know that that is the reality for a lot of animals. And I mean, as if it's not difficult enough to find safe homes for dogs, trying to find a home, a safe home for a dog who is dangerous is really difficult. So instead of euthanizing him, um, that was the start of Odd Man Inn.
Yeah.
There was a piece of property in Washougal, Washington. It was a little under 4 acres. That became Roswell's first home, and it became the birthplace of Odd Man Inn. And when Roswell calmed down in his home, was able to make some space for rescued goats and rescued chickens. And then one day I said, I wonder if there is such a thing as a rescued pig. I wonder if you could find a rescued pig. And I knew very little. I feel very naive saying this to you, but I knew very little about the farm sanctuary movement, about the animal sanctuary movement. And I was not yet vegan. And so it was a very eye-opening couple of years for me to learn about animal agriculture, to learn about how farmed animals do slip through the cracks, about how they are discarded when they are no longer useful, when they no longer fit into families. They're very quickly disposed of. And I really have a heart for that. I have a heart for the underdogs and the oddballs and the ones that just don't have anywhere to go. And so that was 10 years ago now. And Odd Man Inn has taken care of, rehabilitated, adopted out any variety of different type of rescue. We have done it for, uh, gosh, I don't have my exact number, but I think it's close to 1,500 animals.
Wow.
And now in Tennessee, the reality is we are providing lifelong sanctuary care for the animals here, mostly because there are not a lot of safe homes for farmed animals to go to in the rural South. It is quite a different culture down here than what we initially experienced in the Pacific Northwest. So finding a safe home where you can really trust that a pig is not going to be slaughtered and eaten when it is no longer cute, no longer friendly, no longer healthy, it's almost an impossibility down here.
Sure.
So that is how we have evolved. It all started with a dog.
Yeah, that's it's quite the evolution for
Yep.
sure. Uh, and the name Odd Man Inn,
Mhm.
where does that is that? I mean, is it on the as on the nose as I'm imagining?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I can tell you're a smart girl because like you get it, right? It's like a double entendre
Yeah.
play on words, right? We're not the odd man out, we're the odd man in, but it's in with two N's like a hotel. I
Yeah.
will tell you, it's, when you choose a name for a child or you choose a name for an organization, your brain goes to like all the things that it could be misconstrued as. And I was like, Odd Man In is perfect, right? No one's ever going to mess that up. But we very routinely get called Old Man In. And I'm like, oh, there's not an old man here, not Old Man In. Or we get called Odd Man Out, of course, very frequently. But I usually just say Odd Man In with two N's, like a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I have so many questions about that evolution of
Mm.
Odd Man In. But I am curious about like your relationship to animals. So have animals always been a part of your life? Or I mean, I hear that especially particularly pig rescue was brand new to you, but how did you even find your way into this type of space?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. It's a question that I've been asked quite a few times in the past, and so I've really thought about that answer for a long period of time, and I come back to the same thing over and over. I've always loved animals since I was a little girl, and as a as a small person, as a little girl growing up, I grew up in inner city New Orleans. My mom was a young single parent. I was a latchkey kid for quite a few years. Um, I was also an only child for a lot of years. And so I imagine I was fairly lonely. And so my stuffed animals were my friends. And I begged my mom for pets year after year after year. And the few times she said yes, it was usually a dismal failure. You know, we're living in an apartment and she can't manage that. And it didn't work out very well.
Right.
But as an adult, I I didn't know how to translate that love for animals and that desire to be around animals into something meaningful. So I I graduated from high school early and I went to college on a military scholarship. And the military, I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian, but at the time, the Air Force was not offering a scholarship for veterinarians. They don't really need that.
Yeah.
So my choices were engineering or nursing. And at 17, I thought, well, nursing, veterinarian, I guess it's the same thing. I guess that's what I'll do. So I had a full ride scholarship to become a nurse. And that put me on the track into healthcare. And I sort of had to put the whole animal dream on the back burner. I didn't know how to translate love for animals into my real life. As a just regular woman in her 20s, I can only adopt so many animals. I can only take
Right.
care of so many animals. So it wasn't until I was in my 30s and Roswell came along and I learned about animal agriculture and had some resources and some time and some bandwidth to really think, how can I make a difference? How could I potentially help? Do I have some space, some physical space to share with rescued animals? And then I had some know-how on how to care for them because I had a medical background. So initially, we were taking in animals that had all sorts of really random medical needs that I had to learn about as we went. But my nursing background really geared me up to be interested in how to take care of animals physically and how to learn about their medical needs. And I think not only did it satisfy the desire in me to be around animals as an adult, but also I think I spent a lot of years really wanting to be a part of something bigger. And I tried a variety of different things, any number of random things that we can do in a community to try and connect. And nothing quite fits until I found that serving the needs of the animals and serving a mission that was much bigger than myself and pouring my life into it and my heart into it, it fulfilled me beyond anything else I had ever experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be the golden thread in a lot of conversations is it just
Mhm.
resonates so deeply with the desire to make a big impact and help heal in some way
Yeah.
animals.
And I think it doesn't forgive me if I'm jumping ahead here, but it doesn't, you know what, if I'm giving any sort of advice to someone who thinks they want to start a rescue because they think this is the track that they're going to go down, that they're really going to pour into this. And I try to remind people because this has been a very difficult route to take. And I usually say it's a good thing I didn't know then what I know now.
Yeah.
be- Because I would have been too scared to try this. I would have thought, no way, there's no way, that it's just way too
Mm,
difficult. So whenever I have the luxury of a conversation with someone, usually someone who's quite a bit younger than me. I mean, I'm 48, and they ask me about starting a rescue, I try to remind people you can run a rescue in your home with two cats, a gerbil, and a parakeet. That's still a rescue if you're providing them the best of everything. All of their needs are met. They see the doctor regularly. They have appropriate food. They have appropriate health care. That you are still running a sanctuary in your home. It does not have to be a monster organization that sucks everything from your life. that should not be like the goalpost that we're all trying to get to. The goalpost really should be, are you living a life of compassion and service, not only towards the animals that you would call your pets, but towards every animal that would potentially cross your path?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really impactful message, and certainly highlights that even these smaller efforts are just as meaningful as, these larger endeavors that you've been able to work your way up to, or some of the other larger organizations that exist.
Absolutely. And I think that it also it makes it so that anybody of any background, of any budget, of wherever they live, no matter what type of structure they live in, they can still be part of the bigger mission. And I really enjoy that concept of like including people in the rescue community, even if they're they're the two cats, a gerbil, and a parakeet person. You're still running a rescue in your home if you make compassionate choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine maybe part of that conversation potentially is about capacity too, maybe recognizing like what you're actually capable of taking on. And then how do you not get over your head?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're giving my speech right there when you say that. Like, absolutely. I mean, we talk about capacity management on a very large scale here on 93 acres with nearly 200 animals, but you are absolutely right. It is often a very fine line between showing compassion for living beings and becoming a hoarding case that is not sustainable, that then other people are having to bail you out because the animals are in a bad situation. I think oftentimes that doesn't come from a place of malice. It just
Mhm.
comes from a place of not having good, healthy
Yeah.
boundaries. And I mean, I know that your podcast is a lot about mental health care, and having healthy boundaries is a really important part of not only of my own personal resilience and self-care, but also as the person responsible for running the organization. Those boundaries are very important. I
Yeah.
have to be able to say no if I cannot take another animal. And that also applies to people who are living in an apartment or who are on, a limited salary and they're working three jobs and they have children to put through college. And you've got to be realistic about what you can and can't do.
Exactly. Exactly. Which I guess leads me into, how did you know that it was okay to say yes to this big transition, this move to Tennessee, where I have to remind myself of the notes, where you decided that you were going to take over a herd of 159 pigs and
Yeah.
manage a 93-acre property.
I just said a minute ago, it's a good thing I didn't know then what I know now. And that applies to that particular situation as well. It has been exponentially more difficult and convoluted and challenging and frustrating than I ever could have imagined it would be. And the amount of tenacity and resilience that this project has taken should have been enough to scare me off and say no.
Mm.
And I am very grateful that I didn't know those things because I'm so proud to be here. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so grateful to be able to help these animals. I didn't know that it was the right thing, except that I truly believed in our work ethic as an organization. I believed in our donors to support our work. I believed in our knowledge that we have the right skill set, we have the right tenacity, we have the things that this is going to require. I just didn't realize it meant we needed them in spades.
Mm. Yeah.
So it has been a very difficult venture. We are about 4.5 years into the project here. The first 2 years in Tennessee were really focused on trying to get the animals the health care that they needed. They were very behind on their health care, just routine health care, basic health care. We had somewhere around 65 female pigs that had not been spayed, which is a critical component of basic health care for female pigs. That alone was a very daunting task, and trying to get them the things that they need. We needed to do vaccinations, we needed to do hoof care and tusk care. I mean, within the first several months that we were here, we had to euthanize quite a few because they were in such poor condition. It was a heartbreaker. And so for the first 2 years, we really just focused all of our fundraising, all of our messaging, all of our physical efforts on getting the animals the things that they needed. Now, for the last 2 years or so, we have concentrated more on the facility and re reconfiguring their homes, making sure homes are insulated and easy to clean, and that they have awnings for shade, and that they have appropriate sanitation and good roads and mud management. I mean, anytime you have hooved animals, you have mud. It's a constant struggle to try and keep that at bay. Um, and now we are to a position where the facility is in pretty darn good shape, and we are moving into the next phase of upgrading the facility, which is a much heavier lift for us, and that's going to take another couple of years to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking with, I'm not sure if you had listened to the interview with one of my other pig sanctuaries up in New York, Todd. But
Mm-hmm.
it took him a long time working on his own facility to feel like he actually enjoyed the property finally after
Mm-hmm.
years and
Mm-hmm.
years of just
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it
Mm-hmm.
what it
Yeah.
needed to be.
Yeah, it's really challenging. I mean, pigs are amazing animals for a variety of different reasons. They're intelligent and they're emotional and they're super family oriented, and I mean, I could go on, but also they're strong and they're very destructive. And they don't mean to be, but they break a lot of stuff. And it is like playing whack-a-mole, just trying to repair the things that they have broken, and trying to like pig proof spaces where you don't want pigs. And I mean, that is a learned skill for us. But
Yeah.
also it's also a learned skill to realize they're always going to break things. You just have to continually fix things behind them, and you never really feel 100% caught up with that. But I mean, that's just part of the job, and it's part of the quote unquote joy of taking care of pigs.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, there's some real acceptance in this process.
Warts and all. Yep, warts and
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I guess, as I've started this process and really kind of been identifying, all the variety of rescues and sanctuaries and refuges, uh, I'm surprised at how many pigs are in need. And I'm curious, how does that
Mm.
happen? What
Oof.
leads to this situation?
Well, I mean, the primary driver of that is animal agriculture.
Okay.
Right? Pigs are bred into existence by the millions and millions and millions into animal agriculture. And sometimes it's small backyard farms, but a lot of times it's huge production facilities. It is impossible for us as rescue organizations to keep up with how frequently they are bred, and with honestly how prolifically they're able to produce young. So I don't know if you know this, but if a female pig can have 3 litters of piglets per year, and she can have anywhere from 12 to 15 piglets per litter. It's an insane amount of
Yeah.
babies. They're prey animals. They are designed to survive and to continue on their species. So I mean, that's the primary driver of the pig problem. And I mean, if we even move out of animal agriculture where pigs are used for their flesh, if we just talk about the whole, I want to have pigs as pets, and I think I'm going to make money off of breeding smaller pigs, right? That the mini pig conversation has been going on for as long as I've even known that I've known that there were rescued pigs, and
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily seem to be getting a lot better, to be honest with you, Jolene.
Yeah.
I don't think that I've seen that slowing down. Pigs also, if you're talking about a pet pig, a smaller pig, then that pig can live 15 to 20 years if it's well taken care of. And a very common theme that I see in animals who need to come into a rescue or who need help out of their current situation is that humans just can't stand the test of time.
Mm,
They just cannot commit to 15 or 20 years to an animal who eventually has medical
yeah.
needs. Baby animals are cute, they are funny, they're charming, they don't usually have health problems. They come and go in and out of the house, they're house trainable, all the things, right? But eventually that turns into an elderly animal. And if you're not careful, an elderly animal who's also obese, who also has medical problems. So we get just as many requests, if not more, requests for smaller pigs to come into rescue because divorce, because grandma got old, because I've lost my home, because I'm being foreclosed on, because I've lost my job. The first thing to go is the animal. You're
Mhm.
not going to do that. You not can't leave your children behind, so you got to leave the animal behind. Our sanctuary has a tendency to really focus on local rescues because we are in the rural South. So we try hard to save space for local animals who need to come into rescue, knowing that down here they just don't have a lot of resources versus trucking an animal across the country to come live at Odd Man Inn. He may pass 10 rescues on the way to come to us. And then we have a local guy who has no place to go. So we really try to focus on local rescues, and we almost always say yes if it is a farm pig. If it is a big pig who is at high risk to be pushed into animal agriculture and to be killed, I really want to save space for that. And it's not that the potbellies aren't just as deserving, but there are not many places who are willing to take big pigs. And when I say big, I mean upwards of 900, 1,000 pounds.
I'm amazed by the size of pigs sometimes. I mean, they're just giant. And like you said, they're strong and
Mhm,
they
mhm.
can
And
be,
in and so intelligent,
yeah,
right? So they
yeah,
troubleshoot everything. Like if they want to get into a space that you don't want them in, they're going to find a way, or they're gonna like make themselves worried trying to get into a space.
yeah,
So yes, very smart, but also very social, very family oriented, incredibly clean. Like all the things that we are taught about pigs
yeah,
as young people, they're just wrong. It's just marketing to help make animal agriculture more tolerable to the general community.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, we had a family that lived in the neighborhood who had a potbelly pig, and it would figure out how to get out, and it liked to make its way down to Dairy Queen. Uh, so you would find on the next door app, like, who lost their pig, and they'd always have to come find it, but it always wanted to go to Dairy Queen. So,
That's amazing.
okay, so this has been a daunting but rewarding transition in what you've been working on.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about these stressors, the frustrations that you
Mm,
encounter, whether they're day to day or they're just things that just come up naturally, and
mm,
how you feel like you and your team have been able to weather those stressors and frustrations.
mm. I think that's a great question. I mean, there are all the typical ones, like the typical ones, like there's just never enough space for everyone, or worrying about the cost of goods and the economy, and whether or not economic changes are going to affect our donors, and worrying about medical care of large animals in all weather. It rained cats and dogs here today, and our team was drenched. All of us this morning for breakfast were drenched. So I mean, there are definitely environmental stressors, and the stress of mm, folks really needing especially nowadays, folks really needing to have work-life balance. And how do we make that happen while also providing for the needs of the animals and doing a good job and feeling proud of the work that we do? And I do think that is a little bit of a stressor, but it's a stressor that also, if we focus really hard on prioritizing work-life balance for people and finding ways to support one another, that definitely builds resilience within our team. And it is something that I historically was not very good at in the past, as many young sanctuary founders are. Right? We think like, I'm just going to work myself right into the ground. And it wasn't really until we moved to Tennessee that and I was exposed to some younger generations of caregivers who came and volunteered with us and started working with us. And I realized they're really serious about work-life balance. They are really serious about, my work time is my work time, and in my off time, I don't want to be doing like light work stuff. I want to actually be off. And I paid attention to why that was a priority to them, and I learned from it.
Mm,
And it has been the last couple of years, it has been something that I've been really focused on, not only promoting within our team and encouraging within our team, supporting their time off, finding ways to support them in a variety of different ways or different things that they like to do, but also being I'm the leader of the team.
yeah.
So if I don't set that example, or if I set a poor example of, I'm going to work 16 hours a day every single day, and well, you guys can go home, but I'm going to stay here and work, that is not a healthy work
Yeah.
environment. And I think that for me, it was definitely challenging when I just felt guilty. I
Mm,
felt so guilty that I wanted to have some time off, or that I wanted to do something else, or that I just needed to step away for a little while. And I have grown now into a leader who promotes time off and promotes work-life balance, and really supports the individual desires and interests of our team members. And I don't just mean our caregivers. I also mean we have a very we have a very extensive remote volunteer team. All of
mhm.
our board of directors live remote, and they are all volunteers for the organization. And um, there is not there is not there is not a sense of like, well, everybody else has to do more because I'm doing more. It's more a sense of, we're grateful to have you for whatever portion of time you're willing to gift the organization. And we want to know what your interests are, and we want to know what you feel like your skill set is, and how can we plug you into the organization in an area where you feel not only great about contributing, but you feel fulfilled by your contribution.
Yeah.
And that is an upward spiral for all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that that leadership style is very impactful for the people who get to, experience that. And I would imagine, and you'd have to tell me your experience, but that sounds like it would lead to um, people wanting to stick around longer.
Yes,
Yeah.
which that's great for them, and it's great for the organization, and most importantly, it's great for the animals. To
Yes.
have people who are like stable, but emotionally stable, and emotionally healthy, and have a lot of knowledge, historical knowledge of the organization. And when we're talking about animal caregivers, when we have caregivers who stick around for a long time, which we do currently have a nice team of people who have been here for several years now. And I, I can't speak for them, but I think that they do enjoy their jobs, and I think they feel respected at their job, and I think they feel valued, and they feel satisfaction. And that's important not only for those people, but also, I've mentioned several times, we're in rural Tennessee.
Mhm.
There's not a huge pool of people to draw from
Yeah.
if to then like quickly replace caregivers if they're leaving. And so it is part of our longer term model. When we discuss, we have succession planning meetings once a month, and we talk very extensively about succession planning. And when we talk about that, we realize that the organization itself has to be an attractive enough place to work or to volunteer, that is how we're going to draw good talent to the organization.
Mhm.
Not because Jamestown, Tennessee is like a bustling hub of nightlife, because
Yeah.
it is definitely not.
Yeah.
So it has to be a situation where people are lining up to work at Odd Man Inn because they've heard great things about us versus they're just looking to move to Jamestown.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so incredibly wise and forward thinking. And I think it really
Thanks.
demonstrates really the business of a successful nonprofit, right? That you have to treat it as a very serious business in order for it to go on for 10 years as you are at right now, and hopefully, longer and
Yes.
longer. Yeah.
I would love to imagine a world where animal sanctuaries are no longer needed. I mean, everybody in animal rescue says that. They don't want dog rescues to have to exist or cat rescues. I certainly don't want pig rescues to have to exist. But the reality is the animals are going to need this resource here for generations to come. So those of us who are on the ground floor of building the organization we're responsible for putting really fundamental building blocks in place so that when founders pass on or when first generation caregivers pass on, we have created enough scaffolding that it's easy for people to take the ball and run with it. Usually it's the first generation of people that are doing the really messy, icky work of
Yeah.
trying to get the place set up. And it has been 10 years of messy, icky work. I'm not going to lie. And I would love to see the day where this place is turnkey operation and someone walks right in and starts working. I think we're probably 5 years away from that. So
Mhm.
I think I'll survive another 5 years of this.
Well, I hope so. I'm sure other people hope so as well. Well, you mentioned the word resilience just a moment ago. So, I like to ask people how they would define resilience in their own words. So I'm curious what
Mm.
your definition would be.
Um, I'm a pretty strong as a healthcare provider, I'm a pretty strong proponent of putting things in the simplest terms possible. I believe healthcare literacy is really important. But I think also when you're talking about kind of broader nebulous concepts like this, resilience, what does that mean exactly? And we could certainly Google it, but I have a sticker on my water bottle that tells me exactly what I need to know about resilience. It
Mm.
says, it's just a bad day, it's not a bad life. And that seems so simplistic, right? But when I see that, I do feel like, oh yeah, like don't get so down in the dumps about something bad happening. Like pick yourself up and keep trucking along, move through this problem, and tomorrow is a new day. And to me, that is probably the simplest way that I conceptualize the,
Mm.
the concept of resilience is just the ability to, like, even in the moment when something bad is happening and you feel like the world is crushing down on your shoulders and woe is me, this is so terrible and nobody likes me and nobody's paying attention, the ability to say, like, it's just a bad moment.
Yeah.
It's not a bad life. And tomorrow is a new day, and we can try again, and we can reset ourselves, and we can pivot and try something different. And sometimes it's something as simple as trying to get a pig to go in the trailer, and
Yeah.
you're so frustrated, right? You're so frustrated. Like, these pigs never want to go in the trailer. This is so frustrating. Okay, let's pivot and readjust ourselves, right? This is not a bad pig.
Yeah.
This is just a bad setup. Let's try something different. And so I think For me, that concept is how I would most easily define resilience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think being able to draw upon perspective can be
Hmm. Hmm.
very important, right? And like you said,
Hmm.
you're kind of in the thick of it and it feels so terrible. It's
Hmm.
hard sometimes to
Hmm.
get that perspective, but give
Yeah.
yourself enough space or enough breathing room to find it, I think can be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Take a breath, stop, back up from the situation,
Yeah.
like reset. If your emotions are too high in a situation, whether it's, a ridiculous social media bullying situation, or a pig that won't go in the trailer, or an email that comes across the wrong way from somebody, and you feel unnerved by it, just pausing, backing up from that and realizing like this is just one tiny little scenario, and like let's work through it and let's move forward.
Yeah. What did it take for you to be able to get to that place?
That's a great question. I mean, I certainly wasn't born there. I haven't lived in that place all the time, and I still have moments where I get a little bogged down and I feel a little too frustrated and get a little bit inside of my head. Um, I I mean, I told you I was a military veteran, so that in and of itself provides an awful lot of training for how to like get your face on straight, soldier, and do your job. So I think, I was like a high school ROTC and a college ROTC kid. Plus I was active duty in the Air Force. So I had quite a few years of training in that sort of stuff, but also I've worked for the last 15 years as a trauma nurse.
Mhm.
So there's not like ER trauma nursing doesn't really lend itself to a lot of, sitting in the broom closet crying.
Yeah.
That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
And some of that is a very toxic workplace. I have left jobs because it is too toxic and it feels like it's contagious, and like I don't want to be this angry. I don't want to be this angry with my patients, and
Mhm. Mhm.
their reputation sometimes for ER nurses is they're pretty gritty. They can
Yeah.
be really really angry and gritty, but it is a shell that they use to protect themselves. So I think almost 30 years working as a nurse has definitely taught me some skills in seeing how I do want to act and how I don't want to act. I've
Yeah.
had the luxury of working with some really intelligent, emotionally intelligent, and intellectually intelligent nurses, and watching them deal with bad situations and model that for me has been just as powerful as seeing nurses who don't do that well
Right.
and realizing I don't want to behave that way. So I think a lot of it is like mindfulness, paying attention
Mhm.
to behavior, paying attention to my own behavior, doing my own work, also my own mental health work. I am a strong proponent of going to therapy, mindfulness training, meditation, gratitude, journaling, all of these things. I mean, I make time for that. I prioritize that in my life, and it does help me quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all fabulous tools and thank you for mentioning those. And I'm glad you brought up the nursing component too, because in my own work and in clients that I get to work with who are nurses or have a nursing background, there's definitely, yeah, some of those more toxic type of traits that kind of get, built into you through survival, right? I mean, you're
Mhm.
trying to just exist in that space, but I know a lot of it, a lot of people struggle with boundaries and self-care in that field because it's kind of, from my understanding, it's kind of frowned upon to take breaks. Um,
Yes.
it's,
Mhm.
I mean, you kind of always have to be on, right? Like you're kind of seen as not contributing if you're taking time for yourself. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
it's an interesting field to be a part of, an important field, obviously,
Mhm.
but the things that you learn to kind of exist in that space cannot is not always helpful sometimes
Yeah. I
outside of
I
that
work
space.
Yeah, for sure. I worked at a very busy level one trauma center for quite a few years, and it was my most favorite and my least favorite job all at one time. I used to say it was a little bit like dating a rock star. Like you're having the best time, but you really don't feel good the next morning. Like you've partied way too hard and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I loved the job. It was very stimulating to me intellectually. It was very challenging. It was a super busy department. And I eventually left the department because I found I couldn't really switch off that shell that I would have to put on. I mean, I'm a Pisces. I'm a super emotional, like water sign. I'm very sensitive and I feel a lot of things. And I would have to put on like a full armor to
Yeah.
be able to go to work and tolerate the job. And I was like, okay, like I get it. Like it's like you're playing a role. And I I got to the point after a few years where I couldn't figure out how to get the armor off when I
Mhm.
left work. And that felt like a problem to me. I
Mm.
like I don't think this feels healthy. This is not who I am. I have to pretend to be someone to get through my shift, but I'm having trouble going back to my real life, and it feels like it's affecting me. And I think that that plays into the rescue field as well. I think, when people talk about burnout or they talk about compassion fatigue,
Mhm.
that's kind of what they're describing is like they've got this shell on and they can no longer feel things.
Yeah.
They're no longer able to have empathy for people in bad situations, or they'll say things like, um, I love animals, but not so much the people.
Yeah.
I push back on that just a little bit because I'm like, yeah, I mean, people make a lot of problems. They do. Our choices do create a lot of problems. But if we're not willing and able to work with people, then who are we actually helping? The only way to try and make really lasting changes is you have to be a proponent of education. And the only way you can really educate people is if you're personable and easy to work with so that they listen to you.
Yeah.
And I I mean, I don't always hit the mark perfectly on that, but I do think it's a very important component of animal rescue, especially when we're talking about something massive like ending animal agriculture
Mm.
or helping people make more compassionate choices in their diet. If I am like difficult to communicate with and not trustworthy and not someone where someone if I'm not someone where a person can feel vulnerable having difficult conversations with me and asking questions, then
Yeah.
how can you educate people?
Yeah.
So I I do think, I hear people talk about compassion fatigue an awful lot, and just the difficulty of that when you work in rescue. And to me, that just really highlights how important it is that we take good care of ourselves and we take our own mental health really seriously, because I I still have quite a few years left in me, and I do not feel burnt out. I do not feel miserable. I feel like I'm living my dream life currently, and I want to continue feeling that way for another couple of decades.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a fantastic goal. Absolutely. Um, what do you feel like you've learned most about yourself in this process?
In this process of becoming an animal rescuer, is that what you mean?
I think that's what I mean.
Yeah. Hmm. I think the thing that I've probably learned most about myself is I've always kind of felt like I've always kind of felt like, we're not stuck with the life that we have. We can create the life that we want.
Mm.
We can make different choices every day. We don't have to carry around. I mean, for me personally, it was, I don't have to carry around all of this family baggage, or I don't have to carry around past traumas or past hurts. And I think that working in rescue has emphasized that to me over and over again, not just in the people that I've been fortunate enough to work with, but also just in watching the animals
Mhm.
transform before my eyes when they have come from bad situations. And not, I'm not always talking about abuse and neglect situations. I mean, we've seen the gamut of bad stuff, but sometimes it's just an animal who is like lonely and neglected and overweight. And they were loved in their home, but they were not well taken care of, and all of their emotional needs were not met. And to watch them come into rescue and just have a safe place to be and have their basic needs met and watch the amazing transformation that they go through on their own at their own pace has I do think it translates to the human experience as well. And I think a lot of people, they do want to carry all of their baggage around like a turtle shell. They're going to carry that to the day that they die. And that's your choice, right? That's your business. I have never been that person. I
Mhm.
don't want to be that person. And so seeing the animals shed their turtle shell and say, the world is my oyster. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to enjoy this whole sanctuary babe life that you have gifted me. It has given me sort of confirmation that that's a good choice for humans too.
Mhm.
And it has been like an evolving lesson for me as I've grown and as I've aged and as I've gone through things, right? The things of life. But I'm currently in a stage in my life where like the turtle shell is off and I'm living my best sanctuary babe life here.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really appreciate that perspective of, being willing to give yourself permission to
Mm.
let it go, right? Drop the
That's
bag.
a good word. Yeah, that's a good word. I love that. Giving yourself permission. I do think just like when people work themselves into the ground and don't have enough work-life balance, it is a matter of give yourself permission, allow yourself to enjoy something else, allow yourself to put your phone down and allow someone else to carry the baggage for a little while, to carry the responsibility for a while. But it does really start with us. It's a conscious choice.
Exactly,
Mhm,
exactly.
mhm.
Obviously, touching on the resiliency that the animals kind of are able to demonstrate. Is there any particular story that stands out to you, or is it more of just kind of just uh,
Mm.
general observations that you get to see?
No, I was hoping you were going to ask me this question. I listened to this on some of your previous podcast episodes, and I was like, I hope she asks me this one because I have a good one.
Perfect.
So we have this group of pigs that we call the North Carolina Boys, and they are a group of eight giant Yorkshire pigs. And if you don't know pigs, it means like the giant pink pigs, the big production pigs. And these boys, they weigh anywhere from, I think the smallest one is 750, but the biggest one is like 980. He's
Wow.
massive.
Wow.
And these boys are production pigs. They're North Carolina production pigs. North Carolina is like pig production
Mhm.
mecca.
Mhm.
And these boys were survivors of Hurricane Florence. So in 2018, there was a hurricane that ripped through the Carolinas. And the way that pig producers deal with that is they don't evacuate anybody. They lock the doors
Mm.
and they leave the animals trapped in the buildings. And the concept is these animals are property and they are covered by insurance. So it doesn't make sense for them to try to evacuate them. They
Yeah.
just let them drown and then they claim them on insurance for what their body is worth, for what they would be valued at the market.
That market. Yeah.
So during that storm, the floodwaters were so incredible that it ripped through buildings and blasted out the other side. And so
Mhm.
North Carolina was littered with giant pink pigs
Wow.
after the hurricane. And there were 11 of them that came here to this property. And this was before we took over here in Tennessee, but there were originally 11 of them that came here. And we still have eight of them today. And they are massive, right? They're massive boys and they are gentle and they're friendly and they stand very politely for their sunscreen on their ears, and they get their anti-inflammatories in the morning and their laser therapy and their hoof trims, and they're living this pampered pig lifestyle here
Totally.
in these enormous bodies after not only having survived being born into animal agriculture, but then being locked in a building during an enormous hurricane and being released into the wild where any number of person could have picked them up and killed them and
Yeah.
eaten them. They
Yeah.
ended up in a sanctuary. It is like an amazing tale of resilience. And I mean, on top of all of that, just the fact that they get up every day in these huge arthritic bodies and live their best life. That's the whole like, it's just a bad day, it's not a bad life concept, where every day they try again. Like, I'm going to try again to squeeze out every little bit of joy that I can from this day. And I mean, to see them running from, we call our feed troughs the bus stops. So
Yeah.
they wait at the bus stop during feed time in the morning. So to see them trotting from bus stop to bus stop and like lounging out in the sun, or like chasing a vehicle because they think you might have apples. And I mean, it's like puppies. It's like giant pink puppies out
Totally.
there. And I love their story just because it is so, I mean, it's so far removed from anything that they could have experienced
Yeah.
had they just stayed as production pigs. But they're
Yeah.
big, beautiful ambassadors for their kind. And
Yeah.
their story is by far one of my favorite.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that it has to be very heartwarming to be able to see them living that life, living a completely different life from where they came from, and know that you get to be a part of that for them.
It fuels me,
Yeah.
Jolene,
Yeah.
right? Doing that on a daily basis. I mean, the staff that I work with, all of my crew, like never a morning goes by that I'm not like, oh, look at Eli out there. Look at him running. Look at him. And they're like, we know you point this out every day, right? It fuels me and it gives me like immeasurable joy just to see them living their best lives.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. Going back to the people aspect of things, and being an educator, being a connector, you have a very strong social media connection, it seems, with your followers. You provide them with regular updates about what's going on. You have fun and engaging ways to keep people connected. What's that been like for you to do that? And what's it like to have so many people touched by the work that you're doing and educated by the work that
Hmm.
you're doing?
That's a really great question. Let me talk about the first part of that question though. What's it been like? It has meant that I've had to learn a little bit of boundaries, right? If we're talking about resilience in the rescue community, one of the things that I have had to learn is boundaries in terms of how much of my personal life
Yeah.
I share as part of the rescue, because there are folks who don't have great boundaries when it comes to that. And so I have had to just be cautious about not putting myself so much into there on a personal level that odd man in just like it will just engulf me. It just
Yeah.
engulfs everything about my life. And that's not sustainable, not only for me personally, but it's not a sustainable model for the organization. The
Exactly.
organization cannot constantly showcase my face, my personality. I mean, it's hard to have a founder at the helm because
Mhm.
people are so used to hearing my voice, knowing my personality, listening to me on the Friday news brief for 4.5 years. It's like your favorite newscaster on the
Right.
news. And you're like, when
Right.
they leave, you don't want to watch the news anymore. Well, that's not healthy. So setting boundaries, but also being really conscious of the fact that we have to slowly steer the ship over a course of many years to where people are used to seeing other faces and hearing other voices and different
Mhm.
styles. So that's the first thing. What's that been like? It's been a little bit, it's not scary, but yeah, scary. It's a little bit scary where I realize that is a serious problem that we have to tackle really early, and we
Yeah.
have to be very intentional about. Otherwise, if I do vaporize tomorrow, odd man is in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So usually in succession planning meetings, that's how we discuss it. If Wendy vaporizes tomorrow, sometimes they say I'm morbid, and I'm like, I'm not morbid. I'm just realistic. It
That's
could
right.
happen. So that's kind of like on the negative side,
Yeah. Yeah.
per se, or the not so positive side. But on the positive side, I just had a meeting today with a donor. She's a longtime donor of our organization. She's a very generous donor, and I've never met her face to face. We've only ever communicated on social media.
Yeah.
And so I invited her to something that I call office hours. So twice a year, I do this office hours opportunity for certain donors, for a smattering of different donors, where we can sit down just like this and have a
Yeah.
private conversation. And it's their time. Ask me what you want. Like, we can talk about whatever you want. And she was thrilled. She signed up for office hours. When she popped onto the screen, she was just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. She's 70 years old and adorable. And she came with a list, like a list of things. Like, she had done her homework, and
Yeah.
she had her little piece of paper, and she read it to me. Like, she was nervous, and she read me this list. I was so flattered.
Yeah.
And everything in her list was very specific instances of ways the animals I introduced her to had impacted her
Oh,
life.
uh-huh.
And it was beautiful. I can't possibly ask for a better compliment than you're not sitting here in this meeting asking about gossip about my life,
Right.
or asking about gossip in the sanctuary world. You really just want to tell me, like, you loved the Willie and Daisy Swamps of Our Lives soap opera that I put on, and you loved watching me chase Tater Tot to give him blueberries and hollering after him, "Come here, tiny sir, come back, tiny sir." And she had very specific examples like this that I was
Yeah.
like, I am so flattered. But
Mhm.
also, it makes me feel like I'm doing a good job
Yeah.
if I am helping people connect with the animals.
Yeah.
I am not asking them to connect with me personally. I'm asking them to connect with the animals, and evaluate your own choices in your life
Yeah.
based on those connections. And this woman did tell me, I am now vegetarian
Mm,
because of all of these connections that I have made with your animals. And I'm so grateful. It was lovely. It was
yeah.
lovely. So, how does it feel for me personally? It feels like I'm doing my life's work.
Mm,
And I feel so proud to be here doing this. Like, I cannot imagine being any place different or doing anything different. And sometimes it's very physical, difficult work. We're coming into winter, so
yes.
sometimes it's very physical, difficult work. Sometimes it's really challenging work if I'm running a fundraiser and I'm trying to raise money for something, and it's a
Mhm.
lot of money and it's a difficult ask. Sometimes it's really mentally challenging work if it's a medical case that isn't going well. We almost continually have something that we're working on the medical field. Sometimes it's really challenging when it's a collaboration with the university, which we've had
Mhm.
quite a few of. We work with University of Tennessee really extensively. We have a lot of collaborations with them. But sometimes the work is really silly, fun work, like capturing videos in the field, and showing the animals in their best light, and trying to add some extra funny character, like color commentary to what
Totally.
is going on. And I mean, that I do sometimes feel ridiculous when I am doing those things. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, I'm almost 50 years old and I'm chasing pigs around trying to take video of their booty for Cute Booty Monday. Whose life is this? But then when I hear things like this lady, her name is
Yes.
Suzanne. When I hear Suzanne tell me that those videos and that silliness really made an impact on her,
Yeah.
I feel really fulfilled by my work.
Yeah. That's really amazing. Yeah, some of the words you're using, through our conversation kind of even remind me of the Book of Joy. Have you ever read that one?
No.
It's a
Tell
conversation.
me about it.
Yeah, it's a conversation between the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and they talk about, their different perspectives, right? Because they come from different backgrounds, but about joy, and they come together
Mm,
and discuss, like, there's 8 pillars of joy, things that we can do that um, just prime us to be more joyful. And perspective is one
mm,
of them. Humility,
mm.
uh, you know,
This is great. Yeah.
yeah. So
This is my jam. I love things like this. I'm an avid audiobook
yeah.
listener while I'm working, and it's almost always some sort of self-help or self-development books. I really enjoy that stuff. Like the four agreements. Are you
Yes.
familiar with
Oh,
the
I
four
love the four
agreements?
agreements. Yep.
I listen to that quarterly, and it is a very easy and lovely reminder to like bring you back from situations that feel frustrating. But it sounds like this book would be right up my alley. I'll look it
I
up.
think you might enjoy it. Yeah. I find myself
Yeah.
fortunate in my work because I get to regurgitate this stuff regularly. So I have to, it becomes internalized, right? Because when you teach
Yeah.
something, it just becomes part of you.
Hmm.
So yes, those things are very
Okay.
helpful to have. So
Yeah. Thank you for the recommendation.
sure. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's late for you, and I appreciate you taking the time. So, if people were wanting to support the work done at Odd Man Inn, how can they do so?
Hmm. Thank you for asking that. First of all, it is very important to us that we are able to connect with people and that they hear about us and what we are and what we do and what we stand for. We have made a really pointed effort in the last couple of years to give people either free or low cost ways to connect with us
Mhm.
at Odd Man Inn, to actually physically, person to person connect with us. And there are a variety of different opportunities listed on our website. So if you're trying to follow Odd Man Inn and you're just looking at social media, you're only getting a very small portion of the depth of the organization and the really elaborate work that we put in behind the scenes to try to make the administration of the organization very easily accessible. So our website is our home base, and it's just oddmanin.org. We have things like the Pig Forum, which is an educational offering. It happens on the last Thursday of every month. Every Friday at 6 o'clock Central, we do something called the Friday News Brief, where we sit down and we talk about the happenings of Odd Man In. That happens on Instagram and Facebook. We also have a free book club that we offer to people, and most of our executive team comes to the book club. And so it's a chance for us all to like talk about different concepts, but for prospective donors to get to know the people behind the organization. Everybody has cute pigs, right? Like of course the pigs on social media are cute,
Yeah.
but the chance to get to know the humans behind the organization, which is not just me. I have a team of very lovely individuals that help me. The book club is another great opportunity there. So that's also in the event section on our website. And then in terms of support, we every year at the end of the year, we have a food drive for the animals.
Mm.
And it is our end of year fundraiser. Our pigs live in very lovely communities, and every community has a food drive once in a while. So our end of year fundraiser starts on November 24th, and it is a food drive for the animals. And all of that is run virtually, and it is on our website and on social media. And it's just oddmanin.org.
Awesome. That's great. Well, good heads up for that for people who are listening and haven't known that information. And that's also great to know also that the website comes
That's
with
where it's at.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is unique in some ways, as I've, come to discover.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, websites for certain rescues or shelters are just, they're bare bones, which is understandable. And they
Yeah.
on the social media, but
Yeah, I mean, we do social media for sure, but I think that it's not realistic for to ask someone to scroll through 7,000 posts over 10 years
yeah,
time
yeah,
to learn about the organization. You can learn everything right at our brick and mortar. You can see the behind the scenes, you can see who the team is, you can figure out how to support us there.
awesome. Very good. Well, Wendy, thank you so much again for your time, for the work that you do with these animals and giving them a safe place to land, sharing their story, connecting with people.
Thank you.
And just
Thank you. This has been lovely. Like, you're lovely to talk to, and I really do enjoy your podcast. I really enjoy the whole philosophy behind the podcast, and like, thank you for the opportunity to sit here and talk about this.
thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And that means a lot to me. So I appreciate it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Wendy Smith of Odd Man in Animal Refuge for sharing her story. If you were moved by this episode, like it, share it, follow us, subscribe, leave a review, follow us on Instagram at animal.rescuehub. And until next time, may we all find our own tale of resilience. Thanks for joining us on Tales of Resilience. If today's story moved you, reminded you of your own path, or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing this episode with someone else who cares. You can follow us on Instagram at zodi.paws and animal.rescuehub to stay connected, or visit zodipaws.com or animalrescuehub.org to learn more about both of these organizations. And you can also email us directly at info@animalrescuehub.org. And if you or someone you know has a story worth sharing, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, be kind to yourself and never underestimate the power of a tale and a little resilience.